When I remember my grandfather, I remember the smell of peppermint and Prince Albert pipe tobacco. I recall sitting on his lap as he taught me songs. I remember him sitting in his rocker, looking off into space. Grandpa spent a lot of time doing that, rocking and remembering. I imagine he was remembering what it was like to see the light. You see, Grandpa was blind. We spent a lot of time like that, the old man looking back, and the young boy on his lap looking blindly to the future. Now, Grandpa hadn't always been blind, but he hadn't been able to see, at least as far back as I could remember. The blind man in the gospel hadn't been as lucky. He had been blind from birth. But that was about to change. He was about to see the light. In fact, he was about to meet the light. The disciples, well, they assumed what we like to assume. They presumed that's necessary to pass blame. Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answers, neither. It is so that the works of God might be made visible through him. The blind man, well, he wasn't just sinful or even unlucky. Like each of us, he was conceived in the mind of God with a purpose. The blind man was born so that others could see. It happened during the Feast of Booths. The blind man could not see the lights from the booths, the tents that were erected during the feast. The tents, the booths, they were a light shining from Israel's history. They were a reminder of the Exodus, their travels during the Exodus, their liberation from slavery. Like Grandpa, those viewing the shelters were seeing a light from their past. The blind man also couldn't see the torches and candles that would have illuminated the temple. These flames spoke of a time in the future, a time when Israel would be the light to all nations. Similarly, Pope Francis tells us in the encyclical, The Light of Faith, he says our faith is a light from the past, the light of Jesus. In addition, he says, since Christ has risen and draws us beyond death, faith is also a light from the future. The Pharisees basked in the light from the past and looked expectantly to the coming radiance, but they closed their eyes to the light in the present. They did not recognize the one who proclaimed, while I am in the world, I am the light of the world. The Pharisees didn't see the light, but the blind man did. Jesus then does something strange. The Son of God spits on the ground, and with the spit and the dust, Jesus forms clay which he places on the blind man's eyes. It seems God doesn't mind getting his hands dirty. You know, it wasn't the first time. In Genesis, God also reached down and formed the clay. He formed it into Adam and then into us, and then breathed his own spirit into us. Of course, shortly after, we all became blinded by sin. Jesus then sends the man to the pool of Siloam to wash away the dirt. He went and washed and came back able to see. Jesus does the same for us. He sends us to the waters of baptism. There the dirt is washed away and we can see the light. Now, God does not need to use water or oil or wheat or wine or priest or even deacons, but he knows that we are both breath and earth, material and spiritual. After all, he made us. We need the physical assurance of his presence. We need to feel the healing water wash away the clay, the sin from our eyes. Though we need the light that illuminates our foundations, and though we seek the beacon that beckons us forward, we also hunger to feel the warmth of the light on our face now, right now. And right now, our world needs that light. It needs to know that we have a God who heals. It needs to know that we have the Jesus that gave the blind man sight, the Jesus who made the lame walk, the Jesus who healed the leper, the Jesus who defeated death. We need to know that he is with us here today.